Hey guys, you're watching Daniel and Gian review, and today we are going to talk about Anurag Kashyap's feature film Raman Raghav 2.0. But before we get started, I want to make sure that if you're watching this and you're not a subscriber, please smash that subscribe button. We already have like 85% of our views are still from non-subscribers, so a lot of you guys are watching but not subbing. Help us out here. All you got to do is click one little button and ring that bell if you want to get notifications from us, if you'd like to know when we put something else out, as well as reaction videos and so on and so forth. Man, it's an intense movie. That's all. I see why. I'm wondering what the director's cut looks like, because
what were those 6 edits?
Yeah, what were those 6 edits? Because I'm gonna take that back. Actually, there's something that before we even really get into it that I really liked about the film was that you didn't see any of the deaths on screen.
Nothing.
Everything was implied. Everything happened off screen.
You saw one or two impacts of like the blows that he did to people, but you don't actually see like the kill shots.
You don't see what you see in American horror films. Like you didn't see like the hammer going through the skull.
Absolutely, and I will argue to the death that this movie was more impactful than any Saw film that I've seen.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, Saw and films like that have grotesque deaths that make me like, oh, but this is like psychologically powerful, where you're like, wow, this is disturbing.
You definitely felt it, and you didn't have to see it. That's the thing.
And to me, that's one of the hallmarks of a great director. Brian De Palma and Scarface with the chainsaw scene, Psycho with the knife scene with Hitchcock. You never see a knife enter once. You see blood, you see screaming,
and you hear the sound,
and that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. To me, that shows more confidence in what you're doing than anything else, because you believe your audience will still get it. You're treating them with respect,
right?
But I'm gonna start off by saying I love the movie. I when we were talking to Amit, and we'll have the review for that soon. I mean, not the review, the interview, because we did a 20-minute interview.
We're gonna do just a heads up. We're gonna be doing a review of Newton, and within the cutaway scene is actually gonna be an interview with the director, Amit Masukar.
Yeah. But when I was talking to him in that interview, I was saying that like that film to me ranks up there with any David Fincher film that he's done, Zodiac or even Psycho or anything that deals with these sociopaths. And so for me, it enters like the pantheon of great films for me. However, with that in mind, as much as I love the movie, this is not something that I'd want to watch every single movie. Like I'll watch every gangster movie, but if every movie were like this one, I'd only be able to watch a movie once a month, if that, once every 3 months. Because it was intense.
Just the subject matter itself was intense. Like, and there's if I have any issue with the film, it's an issue I brought up with a ton of other films as well. Is you didn't have anyone to root for in this film. You had 2 bad guys, and the lesser bad guy was not that much. He wasn't good.
That's what I liked about it, though.
It'd be just
because this is a one-off. If every movie were like that, I would be with you 100%.
The thing with it, though, was, and
I think that's what makes this one special.
What made it, I think just made it heavier, to the point where there's some parts in the film where it was just like, man, wow. It wasn't a feeling that I enjoyed. So that's part of it. Like, I like having someone to root for when I watch a film. And this was just, it almost felt like just like a really dark documentary, And I
think that's why for me it was special, because there are people out there like that, and that is kind of the real world. Obviously, I feel like this film, as opposed to other films, is very specific to these characters, as opposed to representations of other people. When you watch Thor is a representation of a certain archetype. Certain things that are within us. Maybe we're down and out and defeated, or Captain America.
You're saying they made this film for psychopaths? Like, here's your movie.
No, I'm just. I mean, that's probably what it sounds like I'm saying, but no, I'm just saying that like this is just. It is more supposed to be documentary. It's not a documentary. Let's clarify. But it's supposed to be a slice of life for these specific people. But I mean, it gets dark without even getting into the killing. I mean, just his character, Ramana's character, has incestual sex with his sister in the past. I mean, they talk about that in that scene.
Yeah.
I mean, he kills his sister and his sister's kid and the husband all for basically nothing. I mean, really for no reason.
No. And part of it, at the time, you think it's because he's so crazy that because he got slighted, like he was so offended, that's why he killed everybody.
But then you find out that's kind of just what he does.
And he just went on that killing spree too, I mean, I guess we should just go through the movie because we're just kind of jumping around. But I liked the opening scene. I thought it was like, the music, the music from the trailer. That surprised me that was what it started off with. Him in the club, he just does a rail of coke, picks up the girl,
the cop,
and then he turns out to be a cop. And then, you're led to think that he's going to his drug dealer. He finds a dead body. Somebody comes in. You're led to think that he cleans out the safe, and then we know that he kills the other guy that stumbles upon him. But then at the end of the movie, we find out it wasn't him cleaning out the safe. It was Nawazuddin. That was
Ramana's character.
Yeah.
And then he smashed the head in of both the people, though. The cop smashed the head of both the people.
And I saw that, and I thought that I remember the hammer, and then I saw the rock, and I said, did he use a rock to smash in both the heads? And then it turns out, okay, no, he used the hammer as well, but to make it
look like it was
get rid of the
Ramana.
Evidence. Yeah, he used
smashed their
rocks
heads in, which is just. I agree with you because I wrote some notes down when I was watching it because I was just like, as I was watching, I'm like, man, I was thinking these thoughts and I just needed to write them down because normally I just watch a movie and then we do these reviews and it's just off the top of our heads based on recollection and things like that. But I agree. The opening scene I wrote was the perfect prologue for the movie because it sets up the tone. You know what you're getting into. You know who your main characters are pretty much. You know like all the stakes, everything. Because to me, the prologue ends on that phone call.
Yeah.
And then you cut into that intro title card sequence, which I thought was also amazing.
Right.
I really enjoyed the title card sequences because I feel like title card sequences, at least here in the States, have kind of gone away.
Yeah. No, it was cool. It had like that old school feel, like old school 70s feel, but in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. Because, really, David Fincher is the only director I can think of or James Bond movies that actually incorporate title sequences. I mean, they're expensive. Let's not get it twisted. They're expensive because a lot of them involve CGI and things like that. But this one, I just got a bunch of character, and it gave me it also evoked a feeling of like uneasiness the whole time. And the scene right after that also kind of turned the genre on its head. There wasn't a chase in this movie. There's no detective. There's no hunting. There's no we need to find this serial killer because he's killing people.
He
turns himself in.
And I think that twice. I think
and admits to it both times, and they didn't take him seriously.
I think that actually for me played a little bit against it because there was no chase, and that really affected the lack of having a hero at all because your bad guy hero, who's also a villain, doesn't do any work. He's never hunting for him at all. He just gets called into these scenes, and he's not even thinking about being a step ahead either. The only thing he's thinking about is protecting his own neck. I guess it's kind of Training Day-esque if you think about it in a way.
What do you mean?
Like, the only thing the guy's worried about is covering his ass. And in Training Day, Denzel Washington's character, pretty much that's the only thing he cares about is getting his money.
That's true.
Covering his ass.
And especially when you watch it a second time and you can see his intentions are the same from the get. Like
exactly.
He doesn't care about training Ethan Hawke's character.
No.
Okay, yeah, I can see it. I can see that. And even then even in that film you don't really have a hero. I mean, you root for Ethan Hawke's character by virtue of him not being Denzel Washington.
Right.
But
also not a favorite movie of mine either. That's one movie I get into arguments with people about as well.
I think it's okay. I think it's
of all the films that Denzel did, that's not the one you should have won an Oscar for. That was
he should have won an Oscar for Malcolm X in my opinion.
That was just like Leo.
It was a given. It was with The Revenant.
Yeah.
It's time. Okay, Denzel doesn't have many years left. Let's just give it to him.
Yeah.
This might be his last good movie. But no, I see where you're coming from. I personally like the fact that he turned him in because I wasn't expecting it. And once you view it in the context of Ramana's character and how he's basically just a straight up sociopath, it kind of fits. That he felt like I needed to turn myself in because that's just what I needed to do. And then but by virtue of that, you also start to you start to see what a liar he is too.
He got, but it's also what he got out of it. He got everything he needed to get out of himself. And I mean, how much of it do you think? How much do you think he was pulling? The other guy, I can't remember his name. I know the actor's name is Vicky something or other, but
the cop.
Do you think he was pulling his strings, manipulating him?
I think it's Raghav Singh or something, and that's kind of like how the two.
Why you're my Raghav?
Yeah. I think he has a first name, but Raghav's in there.
Do you think he was manipulating him, like trying to stress him out so much that he like broke? And
Romana was stressing out Raghav.
Yeah, like doing it on purpose because he already saw him.
I don't think he was trying to stress him out, but I was definitely thinking. I definitely in that first scene, right? We're talking about this first.
I mean, just in general, because what drives him over the edge to go to the club and pick up that chick?
Well, I think personally that Romana. I mean, I believe of all the things he says throughout the movie, the one thing that I believe without a shadow of a doubt is what he says to him at the very end of the movie when he turns himself in the second time, and he basically says, I was looking for my other half to complete me because we're basically the same people.
Yeah.
And that's when Raghav goes and kills the girl who got away, the one he took home from the club at the end of the, and that's how the movie ends. With him killing
but I think that was also manipulation. That was basically him saying, if you don't go and take care of this witness, it's going to come back on you.
But that's because he knew the headspace. He knew he was right. Raghav knew that the other guy was, that Romana was right. I feel like that's my whole thing is like, I feel like Romana the entire film wasn't trying to like throw pressure on him and stuff, but he was actually trying to get them together in the same room to understand that they're the same people and that they should not necessarily team up, but that they're extensions of one another. And I think there was plants of that in that first scene, the very, very first scene when he turns himself in and there's that interrogation, because he plants. And I in the cutaway today, I'm going to talk about sound design for this specific scene actually, but Siddiqui looks at him, and there's this club music that starts playing.
Yeah.
And they're in the room, and it doesn't have anything to do. Like, there's no club music playing, obviously.
Right.
So it's the director's doing it intentionally to do a callback to the beginning to solidify that, yes, this is the guy that we saw at the beginning of the movie. And not only that, in my opinion, it shows that these two are aware of each other in that moment. He knows that he's a killer, and Romana knows that he's a killer, but that they know they were involved in that same first incident. I don't think the audience knows at that point, but I think they both know at that point.
But at the same time, they weren't exactly the same. Like, I think one guy kills out of necessity, I mean, they're both super selfish. Everything is, I mean, that's pretty standard when it comes to sociopaths. You're very narcissistic. Yeah. Names right here. Yeah, Raghavan.
Oh, it's Raghavan. I kept calling him Raghav.
Raghavan is, he does have a little bit of like feeling left, kind of like Dexter almost, where Dexter
for his mom, he cares about his mom. I mean, he doesn't kill his dad. He has self-control. Right.
Whereas Romana doesn't. He just doesn't care.
Not at all.
He's way far gone. I mean, that could be eventually the next step that this guy takes, but obviously Raghav knows that something's wrong with him, and that's why he's medicating. That's why he's doing all these drugs. That's why he's out there trying to have sex with random chicks. That's why he keeps Simi around, even though he knows he's never going to marry her, and he's probably not in love with her, but he does have some sort of feelings for her. And I think that makes
it's like his anchor.
Yeah, and
that's kind of like the one thing
that keeps him into the real world, in the sane world.
And once you get rid of that, it's done.
At the same time, he's always, he's always covering his ass. While the one guy, Romana, is just looking for that, like, it makes him feel good to kill people. Raghavan is killing people because he doesn't want to get in trouble.
Which is an interesting thing to think about. Yeah. I mean, because I've been thinking about this
and let's be honest, the people that he kill aren't good people either. That's the other thing. I mean,
Romana?
other than the neighbor, the guy, no, Raghavan.
Oh, Raghavan.
At the beginning of the movie, he kills a drug dealer's neighbor. We have no idea who this guy is or what relation he has to him. That kind of tripped me out too. Like, he just walks into the apartment, like, who are you? I've never seen you around here before.
Yeah.
So does he live there? Like
that I don't know.
Yeah, that was a little odd. Is he another drug dealer? But like I don't know what country those from. Were they African? The drug dealers? The guy that he kills the guy right in front of him, and then the other guy
No, I know you're talking. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea what country they're from. Please let us know where they're from, because they were speaking English, and then they were he was speaking to him in Hindi as well. But he didn't understand him when he was speaking to him in Hindi or English. So
there was also to keep this McDonald's theme, in our last movie review, Chalk to India, we talked about the McDonald's scene. And there was McDonald's here again. Different context, though. So there's a scene where Raman is like roaming around the city. I'm not sure if it's a city because I don't really know where it takes place specifically.
It's in Mumbai.
It is in Mumbai?
Yeah.
Okay. And he finds some McDonald's on the floor, and he's eating it by himself. And then I think from there he goes on to kill more people. But the only reason why I bring that up is, and this is a question for you and then our audience out there, I'm still trying to, like, so when I watch movies like this, I'm always trying to translate, like, okay, how can I apply us as Americans to, like, the Indian world, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm doing that is I personally genuinely believe that we're all human, right? And yes, there's Indians and they have their own culture and everything like that, but at its core, we're still human beings.
Right.
We're still racist towards one another, sexist towards one another, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's just different circumstances, different political parties, but it's just kind of the same thing, just in different forms, right?
Yeah.
When you kind of bring it down to its base level. So all the scenes and cities that we're seeing in this movie, would they be considered slums? Would they be considered ghettos? Would they be considered like?
Well, they touch that. They touch on that in the film. They say, you know, these murders have been happening, but now they went from, you know, like homeless people up to, you know, lower class housing.
So that's what I'm trying to translate, because
so I think
if this were like the American remake, right? Would this be in South Central? Would this be in downtown LA?
Well, I think
you know what
I think Ramana starts in that area. Like you would probably see him start in what's it called, Skid Row, then move his way to like South Central.
So like the family,
and then eventually
the family that he kills.
Yeah, they live in the lower. They said in the movie. They said in the movie that's the lower income housing.
Those would be like Section 8 then.
Yeah,
that would be slums.
Right.
So that's what I was just trying to figure out.
And you could tell there was a tiny little.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't want to assume. I don't know. I genuinely
Right.
don't know. I don't want to say, oh yeah, they were in the ghettos, and then that's considered lower middle class. You know, and that I don't want to be that ignorant.
I think
I just don't know.
I think if you compare them to his girl, to Simi. And this something something I noticed right away was the way they looked, like their skin. They didn't look, I don't want to say clean, but they didn't look as cleaned up as Simi. Simi had makeup on. She looked like she was higher class, even if she's a party girl. You know,
I hear what you're saying.
She definitely
she didn't have the age of like being in the sun all day.
Right.
Like there's that certain grit.
Exactly.
You know, like when you see Mexican gardeners over here, you know that they're working in the sun all day. And they're most likely not living in Beverly Hills.
No.
And that's okay. You know, that's just, again, this is just the human aspect of things. So I can kind of see that, because we don't want to say, oh, they look dirty. They just look.
No, but you could see the working class people
exactly.
versus the next level up. And you could see like just the way their clothes were, just their presentation overall. And I'm going to assume that was done on purpose.
So am I. But that's why I'm asking, because let's be real here. For me, I'm only going to speak for me personally. When I think of ghettos or whatever, for India, I think of Slumdog Millionaire. Right. And I don't want to do that.
That's the only reference you have.
Exactly. Yeah. I want, and then of course pictures and things like that. But I want to know, okay, that, you know, that this is kind of a lower end class, whatever, et cetera. And because to me that's just going to help me grow and understand the culture abroad. Because I inherently will make these assessments. You know, when I watched it, I just assumed that these are ghettos. But now that we have an audience that can answer more than just Google, you know, is it, because I could just Google, is it ghetto, you know, whatever, is this city ghetto? Well, yeah, Google's going to spit out something, but I'm sure we have people who live in Mumbai or, you know, wherever, who can say, yeah, you know, that's, you wouldn't want to enter that part of town at night or whatever, you know, and because I just don't know that, you know. But other than that, that was a weird segue from McDonald's to this. But yeah, no.
Yes, I don't know what the connection to McDonald's is other than him eating food off the ground.
Well, that's kind of what it was. Yeah. Because he started to wander amongst that part of town.
Well, you see, he looked like a vagrant
for sure.
And then, I thought it was interesting that at the end of the movie, he's wearing a brand new shirt and looks completely cleaned up, and he almost looks like a different person when he turns himself in.
Yeah. Well, time passed at that point, I believe. But
I think it was at 24 hours.
Oh, there was a time passage between the opening scene and the first turning.
Yeah, 2 years between the opening scene and then the rest of it. But
Maybe he knew it was his day in court, so he had to, spruce it up a little bit.
And he said that was at the end of it, he says that was his first murder, was in that apartment. So yeah, the 2 years passes because they talk about a bunch of murders that happened in the slums.
Which I don't believe. Because he said he didn't know who he murdered, like he didn't remember names, he didn't do any of this shit, and then you come to find
he writes everything down in his little notebook. Yeah.
Which is another added element for character, because you can't argue that Raman is not a three-dimensional character.
Right.
You might not like him, you might not root for him, you might not whatever, but there's an added dimension. He isn't just a killer. He is, but he's also a liar. He's also the other things, which are all negative qualities, but they still add other dimensions to it.
He's a manipulator for sure.
Exactly. So you can't believe everything he says.
He's a voyeur.
You have to, exactly, which I loved. Every time he was doing this shit, that was like, to me, that was awesome. Because he has, first of all, whatever contacts they use for him for those eyes, great. Like, because they look like those Walking Dead contact lenses, which apparently are really bad for your eyes if you wear them too much. Like, apparently you're only allowed to wear them for like 10-20 minutes.
Oh, really?
And then they start like burning your eyes. Yeah, that's why they recommend. I was at USC. Someone was taking a makeup class and they were explaining to me about how that's actually what makes Walking Dead kind of impressive on a technical level, is because they have so many of these extras, obviously in paint and everything.
Yeah.
But they have to do these eye things and they have to take them out every 10-20 minutes and then put them back in. But anyway, that's kind of off topic. I guess it's probably a good time to do that cutaway for the sound design element.
And everybody's favorite portion of the film review, Daniel is going to do a quick little cutaway about the sound design used in this film as well as other films.
Hey guys, and welcome to another edition of The Cutaway. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about sound design and its influence on one of the most impactful and important scenes in Raman Raghav 2.0. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with sound design, it's a pretty long and tedious process, and it's kind of complicated to explain in a short little video like this. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about it, let us know in the comments, and we'll be more than happy to do a video on it in the future. But for now, let's get right into this one. In 1979, Francis Ford Coppola created one of the greatest war movies of all time, entitled Apocalypse Now. Walter Murch, the film's editor, also received the very first sound designer credit. What Walter did on this film was truly revolutionary and helped usher in a new era of cinema, what we like to call postmodern era. Now, for the longest time, Hollywood treated sound like you would in real life. If you see a bus, you're going to hear a bus. If you see a bird, you're going to hear a bird. If you see a gun, you're going to hear a gun. But what Walter Murch did is he turned that idea and flipped it on its head. In one of the early scenes of Apocalypse Now, you see Martin Sheen laying on his bed in Vietnam, and he's looking at the ceiling fan, and as the fan is rotating, he begins to hear the Huey helicopters that he's so accustomed to hearing in Vietnam. And this is one of the first times in which we saw something, but we didn't hear it. And what I mean by that is, we should have heard the fan, but we don't hear a fan at all. We hear helicopter blades. But we can make the association between a helicopter and the ceiling fan blades, because like a helicopter blades, ceiling fans are very similar. What this small and simple sound design element allows for Francis Ford Coppola to do in the film is it allows for you to extend the visual information that you're receiving. We could have just seen him in Vietnam, but instead we wanted to get inside Martin Sheen's head and to truly understand what it was like to go through the war. Because even in a comforting zone like a bed, he still cannot get it out of his head that he is a part of a war zone. In Raman Raghav 2.0, Vineet D'Souza, the sound designer for the film, also implements similar tactics here. Early on in the movie, Ramana turns himself into the police, and there's a 7.5 to 8 minute interrogation scene in which he confesses to the murders and in grave detail explains how one of them took place. In this particular scene, sound design is being used to not only enhance the overall mood and tone of the scene, it is also being used to entrance the audience. Anurag wants his audience to know that what Ramana's saying is true. And he's doing this by adding in layers of sound design. In the very opening of the scene, he mentions that it starts to rain. And you actually hear rain. But is it raining in this scene? Absolutely not. Towards the end of the scene, he mentions that he has a wireless radio and he pulls it out of his pocket.
उसके पास वायरलेस था रेडियो जिसको दुनिया बोलता था इससे वो भगवान से बातें करता था. You hear the wireless radio turn on, but you don't see anything. But you hear it. As God is supposedly talking to him through this radio, you can hear the sound effect of the radio. It's these added elements that allows for Anurag to really, really bring the immersion level to an all-time high. He wants you in that scene with Ramana. He wants you to feel it. He wants you to feel that confession that Ramana's making. And by doing little subtle elements like this, you might not even realize it, but Anurag is doing exactly that. He's pulling you into his story that would otherwise be boring without these added elements. Because if you could imagine for a second that there was no score, that there was no sound design, that it was just Ramana talking to cops, yes, it would be inherently interesting, but it would not be the best version of this scene. And that's why it's a great scene. Now, to wrap this up, there's one more missing piece of sound design from this scene that I have not touched upon, and I consider to be truly amazing. Towards the end of the scene, Ramana starts to talk to Raghavan, and he says that he's been watching him very carefully. Now, as this scene progresses, you start to hear that title track, the music from the club in which we are very first introduced to Raghavan. Now, the significance of this moment is not only does it connect that this cop was the same individual at the beginning of the movie, just in case you missed it, it also allows for a connection to develop between Ramana and Raghavan. Nothing is explicitly stated, but because of the audio cue as a result of sound design, we as the audience are able to make the connection that these two men both know that they are both killers. And as a result, it allows for the movie to progress to a new level of heightened tension. All because of sound design. Thanks, guys, and let's get back to this review.
One of the things I really liked about the film was just visuals. The visuals are great. You know, the color scheme that he used.
I'm surprised you didn't say it was too dark.
Well, it was dark when it was supposed to be dark, and then it was light when it was supposed to be light. It wasn't completely oversaturated. It wasn't like Daredevil season 1.
That's what, because it kind of reminded me of that.
But it wasn't like that for the entire thing. You know, it went back and forth. When it was daytime, you didn't see that look. You know, I thought that was really cool. I mean, it was just really stylized in a good way. You know, and I really like what he's doing. I mean, this guy's a great director. I'd love to see what he does. You know, not to take anything away from Bollywood or Indian films in general, but I'd love to see what he'd be able to do over here, working with an American script. You know, where he didn't have to like focus specifically on the Indian audience. Not saying that he is, you know, but I'm interested in seeing what kind of stuff he could do if
his
given
range,
the opportunity.
his
Exactly.
Range, yeah.
You know, because I've definitely felt a little Tarantino, you know, with the use of the chapters before the different sections of the movie.
I was surprised.
Although that's also, you know, Tarantino lifted that from, you know,
many other people,
older French films and stuff. No, it was cool. I liked the chapter sequence. It reminded me of Kill Bill, even though this movie's not like Kill Bill at all, not even a little bit. But yeah, no, there was a lot of good stuff. I thought the performances were great as well. You know, I mean this is only the second movie we see Nawazuddin Siddiqui, and he was amazing. You know, he put on a show. He was, you know, the guy
without a shadow of a doubt.
The guy plays a creep very well. You know, I mean, he also played kind of a creep dope fiend in Gangs of Wasseypur as well. But I think he the lead guy. I mean, they're both leads. He had his moments too.
The cop.
Yeah, he played a great stone face. You know, and then the time there he basically tells his dad to back off too. You're like, oh, it was intense. I mean, that was like, what do you think? We didn't really break down the differences in these characters, but I guess we kind of did, but how do you feel about that? Like, how do you feel like, how one guy had just even a little bit of self-control?
I feel like the cop is the most underdeveloped out of the whole thing.
Right.
Because you focus.
Well, you only saw one thing come out of him. That's why.
Basically, yeah. And I'd like to see what would have been. It's interesting for me to say this, but I would have loved to have seen this as like a series, like as a TV show, where you could develop. Because I feel like Romana's character's developed. There's nothing really much else you can do other than show him kill more people, which I don't necessarily need. But the cop, I would love to see what his daily duties are.
Yeah.
What exactly would a night on the town be like him as a cop, not as like a party animal or whatever, but like how he approaches investigations.
Yeah.
Because obviously he was good enough to get to where he was. Period. End of story.
Well, maybe there was
maybe not.
Maybe there was some nepotism involved, as we see with the scene with his father.
Well, it could be.
And I think that was something that could have developed a little more, because the only thing you really hear about is he does one phone call with his mom, then he goes and meets his dad. And I don't remember why.
His peers don't necessarily seem like they don't like him. I guess that's where I'm getting at. Like, they seem to have a respect for him, but they don't seem to question him.
Yeah.
Even though.
Well, he's their superior.
But even then, though, you don't. And maybe it was written that way. You don't see it. But at least the way they
There's
act.
a sense of mystery towards him.
Yeah, but people know.
But it was unnecessary. I feel like it could have developed a little more. That's.
My point is, though, they knew who he was.
Yeah.
And they followed him and they looked up to him. Maybe not in the best, most positive way, but my facts for this theory is the opening scene. I think he has a mustache and a beard, or is it just a mustache?
He has a beard, and then we find out that he shaved his beard.
He shaved it, so anyone who saw him would completely not recognize him. And then one of the cops right away asked, like, "Hey, did you shave?"
Right.
Which to me means they at least pay attention to him.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you shave, it's kind of a big deal. Most people would notice. But,
right.
But I don't know. To answer your question in terms of differences, it bothered me towards the end of the movie. I started to feel the underdevelopedness of, I don't think that's a word, but of the cops' portrayal.
Yeah.
Because we were just so focused on Romana. So by the time we got to the end, his character didn't find a true meaning for me personally until he killed that other girl.
Right.
Because then it became full circle, and then I was like, okay, it solidifies that they're the same people to me.
It kind of, parts of it actually kind of reminded me of Seven as well. Because of the odd chase. They were still trying to hunt the guy down, but, just how he, the final scene in Seven, he manipulates Brad Pitt into killing him, like doing what he wants him to do. And this kind of the same thing happens here as well, and the way they're talking, like. So there's the scene at the end where he accidentally kills Simi,
by throwing her down,
by throwing her through a table. Yeah, that one kind of too. Like that one was one I kind of wanted to see a little more impact, because I still don't know.
Because you didn't really believe that she just died.
When the girl's trapped in the room and he leaves, and I had to have my volume down because of the baby. The baby was sleeping. But I could have sworn I heard a knock, and I thought that was her, like, kind of dragging herself up. Like, she woke up, and she was, like, dragging herself up to the door to let the girl out. But then now I'm thinking, no, that was Romana went in and let the girl out.
I didn't even notice it at all.
Yeah, remember, she's, like, listening at the door. She's at the door, and then she hears something.
So no, I remember. I just don't.
So either she heard the door close, like him leaving, or she heard. Or someone let her out.
Got it.
And I think it was me. I think it was Romana, because he was sitting there watching the whole
thing.
Well,
yeah, he saw the whole
thing. But the reason why I bring up that whole scene was the security cameras. We saw a bunch of things with the security cameras. What was the significance of the security cameras there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't get connected at the end.
I haven't even thought about it at all.
Really?
I guess to me.
Yeah, that jumped out to me right away. Like he's doing all this stuff to cover his ass, but there's multiple security cameras watching him. Now, is that supposed to be Romana? Look at him, because he's mentioned several times in the film that he's the CCTV.
He's watching
God's,
him.
Yeah, he's God's CCTV.
It could be. It could be. I genuinely didn't even put two thoughts into it, and that's not because it's a bad thing. I was sometimes when you watch a good movie, for me personally, I get distracted. I will miss certain things that normally, I tend to be more critical of movies I don't like.
Right.
Because I'm just, something has taken me out of the story where now I'm paying attention to minutia. So I'll be honest, I didn't even think about it. But that sounds valid to me. It could be what we perceive to be as a CCT camera, but it's not. It's actually Ramana. And that's another stylistic choice right there too. So it kind of fits in that whole, because this is almost
I just thought it was an interesting choice. Because,
it's a weird piece because this is I feel like it's showing like realism.
Yeah.
In a way, because it's clearly not real. If that's the case, if he did decide to, if Anurag decided to like have Ramana's vision be like a CCT camera, TV camera, but I didn't pick up on that at all. So cinematography you're both fans of. Was just technical. See if we missed anything. Excuse me. Cinematography we talked about. Writing we talked about. Acting, performances we talked about. Editing, kind of touched upon editing. Yeah. I liked it. I felt like for the most part all the montage, like the development of the edit worked because there wasn't a lot of story per se going on, so I feel like editing is crucial.
I think when it comes to editing, the sound was definitely the most important
sound
part.
Design was on point without a shadow of a doubt. Sound was on point. That's kind of it. Directing, we talked about that. There were some good directorial choices going on, like the reveal of the whole the reveal of the murder at the end, the first murder, we kind of get that, like, it's not necessarily a plot twist, but it's a reveal.
Yeah.
It worked. I didn't feel like it was added on unnecessarily or like some sort of huge plot twist where all of a sudden it changes everything about, it kind of just confirmed, but added a little extra pieces to it. The ending, there's no real story to it. I feel like it's a very impactful, thematic-based movie. I know I talk about theme a lot, but it's hard to argue that this one wasn't theme-based because it's all about that. Because the story, what is the story? There really isn't one. It's about a killer who kills and a cop who's also kind of a killer.
Well, it's about two killers who are interconnected and they don't know. Well, one of them doesn't know why.
But there's no progression. There's no change. There's no arc. They're the same people.
No, definitely. They don't change.
So there's
unless you believe Ramana at the end that he's done killing because he's satisfied with what he's done so far.
Do you think, and this, I don't know if this would be a controversial question or not, but do you think it'd be easier for Ramana to kill as many people as he did because he's in India as opposed to if he were over here in the States?
That's a question that I can't honestly answer because I have no idea. I've never been to India. I don't know, what the surveillance is as.
Because the people he was killing wasn't homeless people, but in my mind, if he were like, let's say he was in L.A.,
I think you could go. I think if you want to go on a killing spree in a poor neighborhood, you can go for a long time.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think anywhere,
because I think he would target homeless people here,
and people don't care. That's the thing. We've already seen it's
unfortunate.
We've had two major fires here in LA County, and unfortunately within 10 miles of me on either side.
No one's cared until the one small fire hit Beverly Hills.
Yeah. The fire that hit Bel Air.
Or Bel Air, yeah.
The fire that hit Bel Air is contained. Got contained quick. There's video if you guys want to look up Skirball fire.
Just look at our Instagram page.
Yeah,
I posted a video. I reposted a video.
Look on our Instagram page, DNG Talk, and you'll see this, what looks like Mordor from
It literally
Lord of the
looks
Rings.
like lava. No joke.
Yeah, I just drove today, and there's no sign of that anywhere. I don't see any of that.
Because, man, once you mess with rich white people... You bring in the reinforcements, the cavalry's there.
Every firefighter in
Trump
the county
all of a sudden Trump increases the FEMA package,
exactly.
Literally, so
he probably has friends that live in those hills.
He has a house. He has a house there,
saving his own house.
That's even though he probably wished it burned down for insurance money, but it's funny because you have UCLA right there too. You threaten the school, UCLA.
Yeah,
you don't want to.
That's the most applied to school in California.
So it's unfortunate. It's kind of proving my point here. And the only reason why I was asking about who he would kill here is just, again, how can we translate? Yeah. Not everything's going to translate. We get that. But, I feel like as we've been doing these reviews, as we've been doing reaction videos, as we've been reading comments, whatever, for me, what's being clear is we're the same, man. Yeah. I know people are not going to like me saying that because, we're Indian. We're this. Yeah, we are. But we're human beings, you know. I can go to India, meet an Indian girl, have a baby. An Indian guy can come to America, whatever, same thing. You know, we're not like two different species, you know. And sometimes I feel like that's kind of what causes problems.
I guess a better way of putting it is that, you know, human instincts are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know, culture may vary.
It does vary, clearly.
And, you know, values may vary to a certain extent.
Yes.
But there's certain things that
are inherent to us.
Yeah, that
as
just
human
as human beings that we do, you know, especially when compared to the rest of the animal kingdom.
So with that, on that note, you know, it's such a grim and
it's a positive.
It's a positive ending for this.
Positive ending to what is. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, make sure you go and check it out and see if you agree with us, disagree with us, and whatnot. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to interact with you about these kind of things. But before we go, what do you give it rating wise?
It's a 9. Easy.
Give it a 9.
A 9.
Okay, I'm gonna give it like an 8. It was, you know, like I said, I that's just personal taste. You know, it's not a movie I'll ever watch again.
For sure. I would, but
you know,
but it's gonna be a while.
Yeah, it's just,
and it would be to study it and to use it as reference points for me personally.
Because it's a movie. It's a movie that if I was teaching a class, I would show it.
Absolutely.
You know, but as for my own personal enjoyment, I don't think I'd.
Would you add this to your collection?
Would I buy it? You know, it's just. I have a bunch of movies here that I never watch. I probably would buy it just to have it as a reference point to let someone borrow it or something like that. You know,
because if I would buy it personally, I would buy it, and if I were to ever make a movie that has to do with sociopath, serial killer, this is definitely one I would watch to like get a little bit of inspiration to steal a little bit from.
Fair
and that's
enough.
The other thing, you know, stealing is very commonplace in the film world, and I'm someone who believes in
sharing is caring.
Yes, we'll leave it at that.
All right, guys, and once again, make sure to smash that like button, ring that bell, hit the subscribe button, leave comments, let us know what you think, and be on the lookout for our next review. I want to say, do you want to say, are we going to put one out in a week or 2 weeks? Depending on if we get approved to review TVF, we're probably going to do another TVF video next week, and actually, we might possibly just end the year doing TVF reaction videos, because I'm going to be going on vacation soon, and Daniel's got holiday things as well going on here. If you guys aren't familiar, Christmas in the United States is like a 2 or 3 week affair. But yeah, thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.